Welcome everyone to this week's Mastery Forum. I'm your host, Shauna Naff, and today's Mastery Forum is Orientation Matters. Do you have materials that were built in portrait format, but there are opportunities where landscape format is better? Today I'm going to be showing you how to easily convert your Microsoft Publisher files from vertical format to a horizontal format, and we'll also put together a slide in PowerPoint with the same content. Okay, and let me preface this a little bit by explaining why we're even doing this. So there are a number of people lately who have asked, you know, I've got some documents in portrait format. I'd really like to be able to convert them to horizontal because they're being viewed on a screen. Perhaps they're part of a CMA that is more of a online visual version of the CMA. And so I want to just show you, I'm going to show you a couple tricks today to easily convert those or toggle between the two of them, because in some cases it makes sense to have both versions of the same piece. Like, for example, in this How I Work with Buyers piece that we're going to be taking a look at today, this might be a good opportunity for you to have a horizontal piece if it makes more sense to have that, or How I Work with Sellers, for example, and you want to insert that into a CMA. So not all, I should also say that not all brands, it's not an easy back and forth with every brand because of the way brands are built. For example, if you've got, you know, a background that's all that you've got, you know, not just a graphic up here and a graphic down below, but you've got graphics throughout the piece, you may need somebody like us to build you a horizontal background template if you don't already have one. So just keep that in mind as you're working through this. If you're looking at this saying, there's no way I can do that with my brand, that's okay. That's when you just raise your hand and say, hey, I need some help building this piece. And then once you have that background built, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. Once you've got that built, then it is actually pretty easy to go back and forth. So you can see if you've got a background like that built for a piece, like possibly, we oftentimes will build like a pending to closing calendar in a horizontal format, or, you know, some sort of document like that that's a form document. We've often built those that way on request by people. So if you've got a template like that, then you probably have a background that will work for the application that I'm going to be explaining today. So let's go ahead and take a look at this document. So this document's pretty simple in terms of how it was built. Let's go ahead and click on view, and we can look at the different boundaries here. So you can see here we've got a text box, we've got a photo box, we've just got a couple of text boxes and and image boxes. So pretty easy. Let's go ahead and toggle to the master page to see the background of how this was built. So to get to my master page, I'm going to hit Control M in Publisher. And as you can see here, this is all one big image. So, and most of you will have one big image that's like this. So let me go ahead and close this for just a second. All right, I'm going to go ahead and at this point switch from my portrait format to my landscape format. So to do that, I go over to Page Design, and I'm just going to change my orientation from portrait to landscape. And as I do that, and I'll zoom out a little bit, you can see that what I really need to do is have this be a wider orientation than it is currently. And so if you have that horizontal background, here's what I would do. I would go hit Control M, delete the current background. We're going to insert the horizontal background. You do that by going to Insert Pictures. And you are going to have to just start over with this because of the way that it is built, meaning that you're not going to replace the picture because the orientation won't be the same. So in this case, I actually have two options, and I'm going to go ahead and choose the option with the photo there. And oftentimes it'll come in, it'll try to put it into the margins and be super helpful for you. But really what you want to do is have this be a full page format. So to do that, remember, right click is your friend, go to Format Picture, and if you go to size here, you can just reset this. Hit OK, and you can see that it's off. So I'm going to go back into my format picture, and I'm going to fix that. So what I want to do first and foremost, you might have noted that this actually, let me go back. Okay, format picture. Okay, and going back to size, you might see that the original size was 8.75 by 11.25. That means that this background was set up for a full bleed. If it was just the regular size of the page, it would be 8.5 by 11. So we're going to go ahead and reset this, but we're going to have to crop it before we resize it, or reposition it, sorry. So let's go ahead and reset it again. Okay, and then we're going to right click again and go to Format Picture. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and pull in, crop it down 1/8 of an inch in each direction. So by doing that, I'm going to go hit 0.125. That's your decimal for 1/8 of an inch. And just tab 0.125, 0.125, 0.125. Okay, and then hit OK. The publisher is kind of funky. You've got to actually do this in stages and have it accept that new state before you move on and adjust it again. So let's go ahead and hit right click again. We're going to Format Picture again, and this time what we want to do is we want to get it positioned up in this corner. So you'll see that I clicked on my Layout tab, and I'm just going to change my horizontal position on the page to 0 and my vertical also to 0, and that puts it right where it should be. Okay, good. So now what we need to do though is we need to move a couple of these elements back. We've got this web address. We might need to reposition this a little bit. And then I'm going to move that to the back, right click, arrange, I'm sorry. No, you don't do that here. You do it up here. Send to the back. Okay. I'm going to move this up, and we're just going to reposition a little bit. This I always want to bring in 1/4 of an inch. Everything's always 1/4 of an inch in. Very good. 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. Let's pull that up a little bit. Oops, wrong thing. Just kind of move things around. Okay, and we've got the other contact information there too. So in this case, let's just go ahead and center these. And to do that, I just have Shift selected them both. And I'm going to go ahead and go to Format, and then I'm going to align them center. So that way they work together nicely. And then align relative to guidelines. I'm going to align center again. Okay, so now that's centered. That's all looking really good. We're going to go ahead and move forward with this format. So now I have my shell for this format. Now, and that's just for the master page. So now I'm going to go ahead and close this master page, and I'm going to go back and rearrange the elements that are on the main page. Oh, and I should probably save this as horizontal or landscape. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now I just need to arrange these items here. So let's go ahead and put Karen back in the corner there. I know nobody puts Karen in the corner, but in this case, we're going to do that. And then we're going to go ahead and move her name over here too. Probably want to size that down just a smidge for the time being. I'm going to go ahead and move the photo over. And I'm just roughly putting things in place at this moment. Let me zoom in just a smidge here. Okay, looks good. And let's pull this text box out a little bit. It's important to note that when you are resizing a text box that you don't want to make your text too wide. It's hard to read a really wide section of text. So just keep that in mind as you're organizing, and we may need to play around with this a little bit more, but let's just go ahead and move this down. All right, we're going to move this up, and obviously we're going to have to make some adjustments here, but let's go ahead and move that down as well. And let's see how this is aligned. Let's go ahead and align relative to the center. Very good. Okay, so now we've got the top part is working for us. This needs to get arranged a little bit more, not terribly, but I think in this case I'm just going to go ahead and make this photo just a little bit smaller. And then we may need to adjust the text just slightly. Because it is being read online, I don't want to actually make it much smaller, but I do need to adjust the maybe the space before the lines here. So let's go ahead and just select our entire section of text. I'm going to go to paragraph. And there's nothing, it looks like there's a variety of line spacing options that are being used either before paragraphs or after paragraphs. So in this case, let's just reset this to 0 and 0 and 0, 1 and 0. Oops, sorry, 1 and 0. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to say, regardless of the amount of, regardless of the different paragraph breaks and how those look, we're just going to set everything to 0, and let's see how much space we have. So you can see here, it's just pulled everything together, and it's very cramped and crowded. This is not obviously the format that we want to move forward with, so let's go ahead and make some adjustments. And usually what I do is I start with things that I know are going to need some space before or after. So let's go ahead and just put our cursor into the paragraph at the bottom here. And I like to work with 6 points, 12 points, 15 points. I don't usually do anything beyond that. So 6, 12, and 15 are kind of my go-to. So let's start with 6 and see how that looks. And usually I just have to put in 6 and then I hit OK and see how that looks. And you can see it's a little bit of a pause, but it's not a huge amount of space. So let's go ahead and do that same treatment to actually all these paragraphs. Set it all to 6 points. You know, and that doesn't look too bad, does it? But you know, one of my things that's a pet peeve, hyphens. I hate hyphens. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of these hyphens just because we don't want to drive me nuts here. So let's click on Format Text Box and go to hyphenation. We're going to uncheck hyphenation. That's better. And actually, I do want this to end a little bit around that photo box there. So that looks a little bit better there. Okay, I'm going to take the guides off and just see how that looks. So let's go back to View, unclick Boundaries. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. That looks pretty good. Yeah, I like it. And so there we go. We have adjusted this and made this now a horizontal document. And then once, all you need to do at this point is just save it as a PDF or save it as a JPEG or whatever your program, your CMA program needs. In my experience, most of the time a PDF will work just fine for that. But that's as easy as this is. Now, of course, if you have more elements, like let's say you had a resume and you have little logos designating all your different memberships, and possibly you've got designations and awards and all that other good stuff. That's obviously going to take a little bit more time to switch over because you have a lot of different elements to work with. Here we only had a few photo boxes or photos and text boxes to deal with. So it's probably going to take you a little bit of time to format that, but it really shouldn't be that difficult. Now let me do another example and show you what I could have done if I didn't have this background. Okay, so let me go back to get my Control M, and we're going to pretend like this horizontal background doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and insert back in. Well, I hope I have it. Yes, I do. My original background image. And let's go ahead and we're going to reset that to the original size. And we're going to pull in our bleeds. So let me go ahead and crop out my bleeds again. Okay. And right now I'm not going to be too worried about where it's positioned on the page. But what I do have here is I have a distinct header and a distinct footer. This is where it would be more difficult if you didn't have a brand that has a clear delineation between those two things to do this. But in this case, let's go ahead and I'm going to actually, let me copy and paste that because I actually need two different versions of this. Okay. And basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to create two separate images. So I'm going to crop this up to here-ish. Good. And I'm going to crop this down to here-ish. Okay. And basically what we want to do is we just want to create a header and a footer using the original imagery. And you can get a lot more exact than this playing around with your format picture tool, but I just want to show you what this looks like. Now this may be because when we build the horizontal version of this in a TIFF, we really try to keep the functionality of the piece in mind. So this actually may be too tall for what you actually want, but let's actually see how it translates. So you can see here, oops, hang on, let me go back. Let me send this to the back. Oops, yes, go here, send the back, send back, send back. Okay, good. Close picture. Okay, so you can see here that it does wind up being quite a bit taller. So what I might do in this case is cheat a little bit and crop that up on the top. My crop tool, I probably would do something like this and then move the entire thing up. Okay, and you can see that that worked a lot better. So you got to play with it a little bit, and it, you know, this has to now get moved up a little bit because the footer was just a little bit bigger than it was before. So when you're doing this, you should consider your brand kind of rules. I mean, if something looks like it's really out of whack and you're not, and you've got to squish something, or you don't want to do that. You want to make things larger and smaller on a proportional level, and if it doesn't work, then that's when you may need to reach out to us and say, hey, I need you to build me another background. We're happy to do that, and then you can apply it and create any number of different tools. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go over to PowerPoint. I've got a PowerPoint slide already open. And you might note that a PowerPoint slide is actually sized a little bit differently than a horizontal regular letter size document. The proportions are slightly different. And let me show you how I know that. If I go to Insert, Pictures, actually, yeah, let me do that. Okay. And it might actually be a little bit different just because it's a bleed file. So I inserted my my version of the horizontal background that I had done that we have for Publisher. So this is the TIFF. I just pulled it straight in. But you can see here that I've got a little bit of space on my side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make that fit a little bit better. Make it a little bit smaller. And just like in Publisher, you can use now your crop tool. Hang on. Crop. And you can just get that to fit right in there. Very nice. And now the nice thing about creating a document from Publisher into PowerPoint, and some people like PowerPoint because they want to present from PowerPoint, and that's fine, whatever you want to do. Okay, so in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to pull over our images first. So these are the, and the John L. Scott logo. Oh, no, that's on the master page, so I'll get that in a second. So these three I'm going to pull in as images, and then I'll show you what happens with the text boxes. So let me copy those. Hit Control-C to copy. Let me toggle back now to PowerPoint. I'm going to hit Control-V to paste. There we go. Okay, this is going to have to get moved down just slightly, I already know. Okay, and so let me show you what happens with the text boxes here. So let's go ahead and let's start with the title. If I just select the text box as a box, hit Control-C to copy, it came over just fine. Sometimes it may not, in which case what you'll need to do is you'll need to copy the actual text and draw a text box in Publisher or in PowerPoint and then paste it in. Let me show you that in just a second here. Let me show you with this, although I may not like the results. So I've selected all my text. You can also hit Control-A to select all, Control-C to copy. And then within PowerPoint, I'm now going to actually draw a text box. I'm going to grab my drawing tool here and insert a text box. And hit Control-V to paste. And you can see here that that's going to need some serious formatting. So let's go ahead and change that. Wait, what was that font? Source Sans Pro. Let's even see if we have Source Sans Pro. Source Code Pro. Source Sans Pro. There we go. Okay. And take that down to 12. And this is going to obviously need a little bit of finessing here. So let's go ahead and redo our bullets. See, some things get lost in translation as you're moving from one program to the other, and that's okay. You just gotta fiddle with it a little bit. But don't get overwhelmed. It's just, there's usually a reason for it. Okay, now let's go ahead and do our space before again. PowerPoint works the same way as Publisher did, in that we've got space before, and let's change that to 6, because remember we had that from before. So it adjusted a little bit there. And we may need to take this down to 11. Let's give that a shot. May need to take it down a little bit more. The sizing works a little bit differently between the two, but that might be a little bit too small to view on the screen. So we might have to play with that a little bit. In this case, I would move this up a little bit. Actually, maybe move it back, or maybe crop that down a little bit. So you just got to play with it a little bit. But both PowerPoint and Publisher do a good job of helping you guide and line things up, so you can see how these lines appear as I'm cropping. I'm just going to move that down just a smidge. Okay. And now I've still got to get those other items from the pasteboard. So let me go back to Publisher one more time. And I'm going to hit Control M to get back to my master page. And in this case, I'm going to hit Shift click to select all these things. So I've selected 2 text boxes and an image, and let's see how that works. We're going to copy, Control C to copy, go back to PowerPoint, and Control V to paste. And it came in. Those look pretty good. Now we just got to play with the spacing. You see how the red line shows up? So it's saying, hey, a line here, that will make it look nice. And I hit Control or Shift click to select both of those, and then I'm just going to move those over until those look okay. And there you go. There you've got a horizontal slide. Pretty easy using your existing elements from Publisher. So you can do it in PowerPoint, you can do it in Publisher. You can really just, whatever format you will work best with in the long run. I always like to say, think ahead to your finished product. How do you really want that to work? Do you want that in PowerPoint? Do you want that in Publisher? If you want to send something to print eventually, stick with Publisher. You're going to be able to have those export options work for commercial print, and it's just, your results are going to be a lot better. So, but if you're only going to be able to view stuff online, or you want to go into a presentation mode or something like that, then PowerPoint's going to be your better option. But remember, you can always save something as a PDF and then preview the PDF in such a way that it works almost like a presentation too. So you got to just play with it a little bit. Let me talk about imagery for just a second. So I wanted to talk about this because actually this question just came up the other day. So I had somebody who was building a set of files that was similar to this kind of purpose. And they said, hey, I'd love to be able to put some photos in. Where do you get your photos? And there's a number of different stock photography agencies out there. We tend to use iStockPhoto, and that's just the letter I, iStockPhoto.com. They have 2 different types of collections. If you can buy by the credit, so most of their stuff is, well, I would say, I wouldn't say most of their stuff, but a lot of their stuff is just 1 credit, and the credit is like $9 or so. And then they've got what are called signature images, and those are more like 27. It's about like 3 credits worth. And they've got some really good stuff. They actually have some good local stuff too. So if you are in a specific area, you may want to type in your city name. And if you can't find something by your city, see if there's like a local landmark, like a bridge or a park or something like that that is well known. Maybe a lake, maybe a river, you know, something like that. Or if you live in a broader area, like for example, we live in, you know, Washington State, but there's a lot of different types of terrain in Washington State. So if I'm looking for something that is more on the west side of Washington State and it kind of has a little bit of a different feel than the east side of the, which is over the mountains, and it's a little bit more deserty, I'll type in like Puget Sound, because that's going to give me some terrain that is probably going to look similar enough to my area that I can go ahead and use, even as long as it doesn't contain a landmark that makes it so it's evidently, you know, somewhere else other than where you are. But those are great. You can build a library pretty quickly with stock photography. And, you know, we would say don't reuse an image if you can, especially like on a mailer or something like that, every like 2 years or so. So like, let's say we used an image that was like a spring cleaning image and we used it back last spring. I would say wait at least a couple of years before reusing that image in that context if you're going to be doing that. But for something like this, if you're going to be building a presentation for a buyer or seller, this is a really good opportunity to get some kind of cool images. Also icons, they've got some icons. You can insert different types of icons in here. If like more of a PNG file or a JPEG file, that may be getting a little technical, but you can insert those in here and have it look really snazzy too. And those are good for like designating different types of steps or buying or selling and stuff like that. Let me just show you really quickly what that might look like. So let me go to my pictures really quickly. And I'm kind of making a segue here, so I don't actually have this part of my presentation prepared, but let's see what we can find. So if I go into here, and this is like our stock photography library, and we go into infographics, let's give that a shot. No, that's not in there. Graphics, elements, icons, okay. So you can see here, where are my icons? Here we go. So here's a lot of different types of icons for real estate, and so I can easily like put something like this in if I wanted to talk about the selling process or something. And then those can be little visual placeholders that you use throughout like your presentation like this. So there's a lot that's out there that's available that's not very expensive, and so you can easily start to build your stock photography library with those kind of images, and that really goes a long way with breaking up text, because this is a lot of text to process. I probably would do it slightly differently if I was actually using this as part of a presentation. This is great for like beforehand information, like a pre-listing, pre-selling package, but for like actually presenting, this is quite a bit of information unless you're going to be leaving it with the buyer or seller. So went on a little tangent there, but I thought it was important. So that's all we have time for today at today's Mastery Forum. Thank you to everyone for attending, and thank you everyone for holding with me while I presented this one on my own. I hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you at a next Mastery Forum. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.